You let me know when you want me to officially start. Of course, we won't officially start till maybe 7:01.
Yeah, we'll let anybody pop in that wants to. Looks like Sue is here. Hello, Sue.
Do we can we open it up for like openness Q&A through the whole thing?
Um, I don't know. I can try and figure it out.
It might be
I
nice to
don't.
see Sue's face in the picture.
I would have to transfer the whole thing to a meeting room, it looks like.
Oh, I see. That's the difference
Oh, I
between.
can allow to talk. So Sue can talk now. I don't know if we can see her, but we'll be able
Oh
to
yeah,
hear
I see
her.
Sue right there, and she can
Oh,
just
there she is.
yeah. And Sue, if well, if she's alive, well, never mind.
She might have walked away from it.
Yeah. Well, that and if she wants to have the camera on, she can, but if she doesn't, she doesn't have to.
Mhm. I felt like I had to put on makeup for this since it was
Yeah,
recorded
me
today.
too.
Yeah.
Did
Little
my hair
powder.
specially for this. Make sure my cell phone is on silent.
Good call there. I
That's
get
that.
emails from Italy all night, so
What's from Italy?
I get tons of emails from Italy.
Oh,
So they're 7 hours ahead. So I guess I shouldn't be receiving anything from them right now, but I get all sorts of emails overnight.
so you have mother wellers from
No,
it-
that's
uh,
for the Transportation Electrification Conference. So that's one I
oh,
just did in June.
got it. All right. All right. Well, 7 o'clock. You know what? Let's start, huh?
Let's start.
We ready? All right. So, all right. Well, welcome to calming the neuro storm. What I'd like to do tonight is give moms some answers and some hope because what I find is that moms that have children with neurodevelopmental issues, their life is filled with wake up battles, with standoffs at the bus stop, after school meltdowns, homework and chore battles, sensory issues, battles at the dinner table, what they're going to eat, what they're not going to eat. And then mom has to make two different meals, one for the kiddos, one for the adults. The evening wind down struggle where every kid seems to have some sort of like stalling technique that they love to use. I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. I got all the battles that the moms go through, right? The emotional breakdowns, the behavioral issues, the sensory overloads, all of this stuff. And it is a huge emotional burden for moms and just the whole family in general to have to carry. And it's something that a lot of moms have been carrying for years. And what I want to do is give moms like some answers to those problems and actually understand what's behind them. And then give you some solutions and hope because there's so much hope there. There's so much potential there with these kiddos. We just have to unlock it and calm it down a little bit. So I guess without any further ado, let's dive right in. All right, so this is essentially what I'm going to be doing is giving you my 20, has it been 25 years? It has been 25 years of experience. And the first 20 were without this little guy up here on the top right, um, this is my well, I've got one other one. He's 26. I've learned a lot from him too, but he didn't quite make this family picture. He was in the city of Chicago at the time. But this is the family that lives with us right now. And my two little boys here have taught me a lot, and especially this youngest one, Hayden. And his little experience over the last couple of years with a seizure disorder has really fine-tuned my clinical skills and even ignited my passion even more with helping this, well, entire group of children these days that have so many neurodevelopmental issues. Everything from ADHD and autism and sensory issues. But not only that, it's also the chronically sick, those with frequent ear infections, allergies, eczema, autoimmune disorders. And what I want to really express to these moms is that there is a common denominator with all of them, and it has to do with the nervous system. And more moms are beginning to understand, as they're seeing more things online, how important the nervous system is in regulating their children's behavior, the ADD and the sensory issues. And if we can calm this nervous system down and get it reconnected, there's literally magic that happens. So there is hope. And back to this little story with this guy, Hayden, he's taught me so much over the last 2 years, and understanding seizures and what's at the root of those and how to calm that neurology down so that we can jump through and go over and I should say jump through and go over, but get through to the finish line and release and not see these seizures again. It's been quite a journey, and I've had to dig deeper, like I said, in my clinical skills to get better at helping these issues. So I'm going to give you my first 20 years and first 23 years and my last 2 years of hardcore digging to help my son out and give you guys the gold that I've discovered, especially over the last 2 years, because this little guy right here has made huge strides. So let's start. This slide here is gosh, it hits home with me every time I see it, because for 22 years I've always been a neurologically focused chiropractor, but there was still something that I was missing with my own son. Like, I did all these things right. We had a home birth. We didn't vaccinate. We breastfed for 2.5 years. 3 years, was it 3 years almost? We did all these things right. We ate clean. We did all of these things, but then there was still this seizure disorder. And I'm like, what's going on? What am I missing? And this little video here is a good example of that. So let's play this one little video, 1 minute video. It's called the moonwalking bear.
This is an awareness test.
Can you hear that?
How many passes does the team in white make? The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Yeah, the big moonwalking bear that was sitting right in the middle. And that was one thing that I realized, that there was this big moonwalking bear that I was missing with Hayden. And we're going to discover what this moonwalking bear is, because there is something so, like, well, to me as a pediatric chiropractor, so blatantly obvious that many doctors and as a result, many families miss. So I'm going to be giving you tonight this missing piece that can really make a huge difference in your child's health and well-being. So let's go to the next one. All right, I'm going to escape here. Yep, that's what I want. Sorry about that. Here we go. So the moonwalking bear is the analogy for essentially the spine and the nervous system. It is a condition called subluxation, and subluxation is when there is a spinal misalignment or a spinal fixation. And what a fixation is just meaning that the biomechanics of the spine are altered. They don't move right, or the spine isn't moving or isn't lined up right. And how this subluxation occurs is through these three things here. It's called the perfect storm. So it's the perfect storm of stressors that actually are the things that dysregulate the nervous system and cause this problem called subluxation. And how this starts is first, which is the big key, the aha that I found with my own son. One of the first things is it's down on the bottom left. It's our thoughts, prenatal stress. So I have found that a lot of babies that were born in 2020 have a lot of these neurological short circuits, a lot of health issues. And a lot of that has to do with the amount of stress that pregnant moms were under during that very weird, stressful time of 2020. So, from every store being closed down to schools being closed down, the whole world being closed down, and all of the fear and the stress and the anxiety and the just confusion of what was going on in 2020, what we found is that moms that have stressful pregnancies, whether it's COVID or whether it's moving or a job loss or a death in the family or whatever the major stressor is, we find that children with these sensory and neurodevelopmental issues, most every time, it's not every time, but many moms will have a stressor. And as or some, a big stress during their pregnancy, anxiety during their pregnancy, fear of this, that, or the other, or a lot of medical interventions that raise the stress hormones of the mom. And we find that the more stressed the mom is during her pregnancy, that fight or flight response imprints into the baby's developing nervous system. So their nervous systems are already on high alert and in protection mode. So that's one of the triggers that causes these neurological dysregulations. So fear, anxiety, busy lifestyle, tech overload, all of these things that can create stress. The other is traumas, physical stressors, and that's everything from a long or a traumatic labor. And we find that so often as well. Everything from medical interventions like epidurals and Pitocin, which can really affect the labor process. C-sections are a huge correlation between C-sections and ADHD, sensory issues, and autism. There's a high correlation with that. So stressful pregnancies, birth intervention, traumatic birth, and then childhood falls and accidents. And then lastly, the third category, toxins that you see. So chemical stressors. And it's the toxins that have really gained a lot of light lately in the functional medicine world, from heavy metals to mold toxicity and artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, all the stuff in our food, medical interventions as well, medications. So these three stressors, it's listed right there: traumas, toxins, and thoughts, which could also be labeled as physical stressors, chemical stressors, and emotional stressors. These stressors light the fuse and begin this actually start and ignite this neurological disruption. And as then the nervous system is stressed and distorted, we start to get early warning signs, and that's listed there on the right side. So we see this very common as well with our kiddos, that might be in elementary school that have, ADHD and sensory issues, even learning and learning disorders. We find that they've got some earlier childhood issues that are red flags to me, to chiropractors. And those early warning signs are like colic and sleep issues or latching issues. We find that very common as well, which is, I guess, the third one on the list: difficulty nursing, reflux and constipation, torticollis, ear infections, respiratory infections, asthma and allergies. And then if those things just get treated on the surface level without getting into that underlying neurological level, then those things will lead to motor and speech delays. And what we find is that these children don't grow out of those things, especially if we just kind of treat the surface layer. What ends up happening is they grow into more severe chronic conditions like ADHD and sensory disorders, anxiety, autism, and autoimmune disorders. So this is the perfect storm of events that happen that get us to the end result of these chronic conditions that we are seeing everywhere now in the US. Our health statistics, I don't have to get into that. We kind of in this group, in this realm, know how our children and adults, for that matter, have the highest levels of chronic conditions than ever before. So tonight is about understanding why and how to get out of the storm, pulling these kids out of the neurological storm. So here's a big one here with C-sections. It's easy to miss something you're not looking for. And whether it's a C-section like this or even just a natural vaginal birth, gosh, I have pictures of that too. Maybe I'll show one of those. I don't know if you can see this, which you can. This is a vaginal birth here, and you can see the amount of pulling and twisting that goes on when a child is being born. And it's birth trauma that's probably the biggest dancing, moonwalking bear that's out there, because it's this birth trauma that really ignites the flame. Yes, we've got all of the stressors before, the potential stressors before with maternal and prenatal stress, but it's this birth process that really starts to further the problems. So yes, it's easy to miss something that you're not looking for. That right there is one of the biggest problems. So all of these stressors, whether they're physical stressors through the birth trauma, chemical stressors through medical interventions or food, or whether it's emotional stressors, these three stressors, if you see up there on this chart, they stress out the nervous system, they dysregulate it, and they cause what's called subluxation. And subluxation occurs when there's a misalignment or a fixation within the spine, and it leads to dysfunction and imbalance in the nervous system. And essentially what it does is it locks the nervous system in a fight or flight response. And the best analogy for that is this right here, called the gas pedal, brake pedal analogy. So essentially what this is saying is these subluxations essentially lock the nervous system in a perpetual state of fight or flight. And it's not just fight or flight. Think of fight or flight as like survival mind. You're in a constant state of protection. And if your nervous system is always in this protection state, and the brain is always sensing some sort of level of stress, then the brain isn't going to feel safe enough, and the nervous system isn't going to be safe enough in order to heal, develop, have proper immune function, digestive function, and just proper development as a whole. So you have two arms of the nervous system: the sympathetic fight or flight response, which is the gas pedal, and the brake pedal, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And it's that arm of the nervous system that is responsible for executive functioning, thinking, calmness, but it's also responsible for directing your immune response, your gut and digestive system, and it's also responsible for growth, development, and regulation. So what we find is that these kids have subluxations, especially up at the very top of the spine. And at the very top of the spine, where you see all that trauma during the birth process, that's where the brainstem and the vagus nerve exits. So when we can adjust that area of the spine and tune that area of the nervous system, that activates the vagus nerve, which a lot of moms have heard a lot about, but the most powerful way to enhance the vagus nerve is through neuro-specific adjustments. So these adjustments correct the subluxation, the vagus nerve is activated and restores balance. And that's like it's the most powerful healing force in the universe flows through you. And if there's subluxation, especially in the upper cervical spine, that will dysregulate the entire nervous system. And then your whole healing capacity, immune capacity, behavioral capacity all takes a hit. So this is a great line here. You can't be in growth and protection at the same time. This is Dr. Bruce Lipton, which essentially means if your brain is always scanning and always in protection phase and in survival phase, it can't be in growth and development phase. And you can't be in both at the same time. So the more subluxated you are, the more stressed your nervous system is going to be. And then these subluxations, as you can see at the bottom, when you have a dysregulated stressed nervous system, the common conditions are listed below: ADHD, autism, all the way down to seizures, sinus issues, speech delays. The whole list is right there. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is the perfect storm. All right. The other way to look at this is looking at the spine and nervous system as like a fuse box. It's like a big circuit board. I'm going to zoom this in. It's probably going to be a little blurry, but that's all right. The very top of the spine right here, one of the biggest things with subluxation, if you have subluxation right up here at the top, can you see my little cursor, my hand up here, circling around the top? Yeah. All right. So the biggest issue is when there's subluxation right up here. One of the things that happens is when the spine gets stuck and misaligned, what that does is it sends a lot of noise and static up into the brain. That's called sensory process. Well, another name for that is sensory processing disorder. That's one of the end effects. But the sensory impulses, the afferent nerves, the nerves that signal from the body to the brain, they start flooding the brain with noisy signals instead of signals that say, hey, everything is good. The signals are called, well, I'm not going to get in the weeds. Proprioception, I actually am going to get in the weeds. Proprioception is positive information going up into the brain. Nociception is negative information that goes up into the brain. So think of nociception as noise. So the more that spine is subluxated and the longer it's subluxated, the more noise and static and disruption flood up into the brain. And now the brain perceives stress. The mind and body can't even, if the brain is perceiving a stressful situation, then it's not going to feel safe. And you're not going to be able to grow and develop the way that you should. So again, subluxations at the very top right here, they affect the vagus nerve. And if that vagus nerve is disrupted, you get everything from, you can see over here on the right side, these are the early warning signs: colic, crying, torticollis, ear infections, sinus infections, allergies, immune deficiency, difficulty sleeping. We move over here: epilepsy and seizures, sensory and spectrum, autism spectrum disorders, ADD and ADHD, focus issues, anxiety, speech challenges. All of these things are linked up right over here to C1, C2. And as you can see, this whole spine is literally a circuit board. And so what happens, as I said before, you have a subluxation here. It floods noise and static into the brain up here. And think of the brain as like a processor. And in computer language, if you have garbage that goes into a processor, what comes out is garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. And what garbage out looks like is all of these behaviors that we see. The garbage out is the sensory issues, the digestive issues, the immune system imbalances. Garbage out also has a name, a big old scientific name that a lot of moms have heard. It's called dysautonomia. And there's a lot of girls these days that have, it's not just girls, but the higher percentage of them are girls that are suffering with POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, right? Which is a vagus nerve disorder, and it's also a dysautonomia problem. So if you have dysautonomia, the first place you have to look is in the spine where the autonomic nervous system lies. And if there's subluxation there, that's going to be sending garbage in, which is then going to create garbage out. So as you can see from this neuro fuse box slide, there is a lot of areas, a lot of fuses that can end up leading to a lot of the issues we see in these perfect storm kids. The top is very important, but I'm going to share with you just a few other ones that we see very common in these kiddos. Another area is right here at the TL junction, T12, T11, L1, right in here. And if we zoom in, we're going to see that area is the stress response. T12 goes to the adrenal glands. So if there's issues here, a lot of times the adrenal glands will always be firing. And so that's stress response, adrenal glands, excessive stress and cortisol, behavior issues, and hyperactivity. So we see very commonly subluxations in this area as well. This area also has a lot to do with allergies and eczema, which we also see very common in these kiddos as well. And then the last area I want to cover is right down here, the sacrum that we'll see. And the sacrum is the gut. Now, a lot of parents have also heard a lot about gut issues, and we have to heal the gut to help these kids. And we're absolutely true with that. However, the best way to heal the gut is through the nervous system, because yes, the gut will influence the nervous system, and a lot of people have heard of the gut-brain connection, but it's actually the other way around. It's the brain-gut connection. So the brain and nervous system are further upstream. So if we want to heal the gut, the first place to go is the neurospinal system. And I'll show you a slide on that later as what the proper sequencing is for this, because yes, some kids might still need some extra functional medicine help, some nutritional help, some detox help, but you have to do it in the right sequence, because sometimes you can do things out of order and then you're not going to get the results that you want. So we're going to get into that tonight too. But the sacrum, as we see, gut issues, but also right down here in the sacrum is another area where there's parasympathetic, which is again the brake pedal. So let's come back to here. If we go back to that, or think of that gas pedal, brake pedal analogy, we want stronger brakes for our kiddos so that they can slow down, heal, and regenerate and develop properly. And the brakes are located at the very top, right up here, and the very bottom down here. So those are the two keys that we really focus in on with these kiddos. And this is the proper sequence. This is the sequence to healing. All right. There's a lot going on this slide, but it's beautiful. So I guess let's start at the bottom here. The autonomic nervous system. So this is the sequence to healing, but it's also the sequence to neurological development. So when you have a fetus inside and it's growing and developing, it's growing and developing in this sequence. And if we want to heal our children's minds and bodies, we also have to follow the same sequence. So the sequence goes like this. The first thing that needs to be addressed is the autonomic nervous system, because that's the first thing that's created in utero. The autonomic nervous system is the gas pedal and the brake pedal. If this autonomic nervous system gets dysregulated and is dysfunctional, what's going to happen is that's going to bleed up into the neuromotor system. And we see this in the kids a lot. We'll either have too much tone where the areas maybe right up here are really, really tight. And the motor nerves are just firing too much. And you get a lot of restriction that way. And there's other times where we have low tone. And we see that a lot in kids too, where they're the middle of their backs, where like that T12 area, you'll see a lot of slouching like this. The kids will their trunk is essentially exhausted. It's weak. It's low tone, and we see that again a lot in babies and kiddos where they have low tone. As we move up, if this motor system isn't corrected, then it ends up going up into the neurogut, neuroimmune, and neuroendocrine systems. Those get affected next. Gut would be obviously your digestive issues. Immune system is obviously from ear infections, allergies, strep throat, autoimmune issues. But the endocrine system, that's big. That's your cortisol levels, your stress hormones. But also, once these kids start turning into teenagers, I could have made a joke right there because I'll keep it nice though. They turn into teenagers, but sometimes they turn into werewolves and sometimes they turn into like these crazy creatures. You're like, oh my gosh, what's this puberty thing going on? Well, if their nervous system is dysregulated, their entire endocrine system is going to be on the fritz too. So these subluxations that root down here in the autonomic nervous system then affect the motor system and then eventually start leading into the gut, immune, and endocrine system and cause imbalance there too. And then lastly, as if this autonomic system doesn't get balanced again, it will lead up to the brain. And that's where we get our social and emotional dysregulation, our learning disorders, depression, anxiety, speech, even. Speech is kind of a combination between the brain and the motor system. So when we address these kids, the first thing we do is we've got to solidify and balance the foundation of their entire health, which is their autonomic nervous system. We get the foot off the gas pedal and we strengthen up the brakes and balance out that autonomics so that therefore they get out of dysautonomia and just have a regular, balanced, well signaling autonomic nervous system. And when we do that with our adjustments, our nervous system focused adjustments, it also improves the motor system. We get better balance and symmetry and tone in the motor system. Now, a lot of parents have used OT and PT for this, which is good, but if we do a lot of OT and PT on a dysregulated nervous system, then many times what can happen is you're not getting the best results. The tires are kind of spinning a little bit. So if you want to get the best and the most out of the PT and OT, make sure that the autonomic system is balanced first. You're going to see bigger strides. You're going to hit your goals faster when your autonomic system is balanced first. You might still need some of the OT, the PT, the functional medicine. I'm not disregarding any of those things. I do them all, all the functional stuff myself. But again, like I said, if you're doing that on a dysregulated nervous system, if your autonomic nervous system's out of balance, your gut's not going to be able to absorb the nutrients as well. If you're working all the motor system and your autonomics and your spine's out of balance, you're going to then just deepen the dysregulated pathways. Because if you're exercising, imagine if you're driving a car on a car that's out of alignment, it's going to wear the car out faster. It's going to affect the performance. It's going to affect the length of life for your tires and all of those things, right? So if your spine is subluxated and you're doing a lot of PT on a subluxated spine, that can actually grow. You're not going to get the results that you want. It can slow the results as well. So what we do is we say, first things first. The sequence to healing first starts with the autonomic nervous system. That's going to also help them, the motor system. It's also going to help the sensory system, because what's not on here, which I wish would be, is, and which I'll probably place on there later, is a little space in between here, between the autonomic and motor systems. That's where the sensory system lies. It's right in here between these two. So as we improve the autonomic system, that also, the adjustments also improve the sensory system because it decreases the noise into the brain. It balances out the motor system. And if we think about the gut, a lot of kids will have constipation. That is so common with these kiddos. The gut is a big muscle tube. And if the motor system's out of balance, it's going to affect their gut as well. So as we correct the subluxation, it improves the autonomics, it improves the sensory, it improves the motor system. And then as this foundation starts to get solid, that's going to lead into the healing of the rest of the body. The neuro gut comes back online, the immune system comes back and is stronger and better regulated. And the endocrine system, all the hormones, the stress hormones go down. And then as they get into puberty, they have less of a roller coaster going through because they're better neurologically regulated. And then lastly, the brain. Once we get this cleared up, the brain, the social emotional things start coming back online. And the amount of times I've had parents come in here and say that their kid isn't in a special reading group anymore, or they've gotten the best scores on their math after chiropractic care, or they don't need an IEP anymore because literally their brain is processing better. And I guess I've talked a lot about, all the different not just pathways, but I guess the most clear, direct thing I could say is the most direct way to improve brain function is through the spine. Because if we see here, we go back to here, this the spine isn't just something that holds you up. It's literally the tail of the brain. So subluxations will and can affect brain function and how it processes information. So executive functioning improves, memory improves, school improves, and behavior improves. That is the sequence to healing. So yes, do the OT and PT, do the speech, do the functional things, but make sure that the autonomic system is balanced first, because if you don't, as I said, you can spin your tires a little bit. You might not get the results that you want. And sometimes some kids get worse because they're so dysregulated. You've heard of like a kid that goes through a detox, they get worse many times before they get better. And if we want to minimize the getting worse before you get better, make sure that this foundation is secured up and healed up first. So what do we do to check for this nerve system dysregulation, for this subluxation? We don't guess. I don't guess any, I shouldn't say any, well, I don't guess anymore. With my son Hayden, as I said, he was born at home. We did all the things that we thought what we were doing was right. But you know what I never did? I never scanned my own kid, which was like, it's almost embarrassing for me to say that, but I'm gonna just let you all know that sometimes we're not all perfect. I thought, oh, we're doing everything right. I don't even really need to scan them. I'm just going to adjust them, tune them up, on a wellness care basis. Once I scanned him after his seizures, I saw what was going on. And these scans that you see here were essentially, they weren't his scans, but they were very similar to them. And I said, oh, that's what I was missing. I should have been doing more. And so I don't guess anymore. My son's been like my best teacher ever. And because of our little adventure, yeah, I don't guess anymore. I scan and I know exactly where the nervous system is dysregulated. The first scan that we do is called a thermal scan. And why thermography is so important is because your brain controls your skin and your skin temperature. All right. So we use infrared thermography to check for imbalances in temperature. So because the brain controls the skin and the skin temperature, if there's imbalances in the skin temperature, like hot spots like you see up here, that's a sign that the nervous system's out of balance. So thermal imbalance equates into autonomic nervous system imbalance. So that's the first scan that we do, thermal scan. We also do an EMG, which is like an EKG. Everybody's heard of an EKG, measures the electrical impulses of the heart. The EMG monitors the electrical impulses of the muscles through the motor nerves. So we're getting a motor nerve scan with this EMG. What this tells us, how the motor nerves are, the tone of the muscles is a reflection of the tone of the nervous system. The higher the tone, the more raging bull you get. And so we've got little terms that we use for our kiddos that come in. This one here, oh gosh, this one we would call a raging drunken bull, but I'll get to those in a second. The first name that we have is called raging bull. And the raging bull is somebody that has a lot of energy, like you see right down here on the bottom left of this middle picture. The energy index says 413. We want that to be on a kiddo between, say, no more than 200. With an adult, we want it between 100 and 120. But with kids, their motor nerves fire a little bit more. So we've got these raging bull kids. These are the kids that are just, well, they're raging bulls, right? And they have the ADHD and they're go, go, go. They're like thoroughbreds, right? There's just no slowing them down. The other kind of category that we give is drunken bulls. And was my little Hayden. He was more of a drunken bull. His energy wasn't high, but you're going to see these other two numbers here, pattern and symmetry. The more asymmetrical, out of balance, confused the motor system is, and you'll see this in their balance. They'll seem to run into things more often. They seem to just kind of be drunken bulls, right? And what I've also learned, it's in the drunken bull phase, we'll call it, is where we see where seizures like to live, because it's the asymmetry and neurological confusion that really drains the entire nervous system. And when that nervous system gets drained, if it continues to get drained, imagine a computer with like 40 different windows open up on the screen, and then you hit play on a YouTube video, the computer might just stop and freeze. That's essentially what a seizure is there's too many windows open, and the brain has to reboot, and rebooting equates into a seizure, and those things are not fun. So the more confused the nervous system is, the more it drains that battery, drains the brain, until finally we get to exhaustion. And that's what we can see here on this HRV score. And this dot right here is showing neurological exhaustion. So I'll give you 3 phases. I don't have a slide on this, but there's essentially 3 phases to subluxation. One is neurological stress, gas pedal down. which leads to neurological confusion, which then leads to neurological exhaustion. And that's where a lot of these kids are, is their nerve system is just exhausted. So a little more on this third scan here that we do. It's called heart rate variability. And your heart, what heart rate variability gives us is a couple things. One, how much capacity their nervous system has, how much power it really has to be able to adapt to stressors. Imagine a race car uh, that has the gas pedal down, but it doesn't have any brakes, and it goes into turn one, and it crashes. That's what happens with a lot of our kids as they transition from one thing to another, from school to home, or from home to school, or whatever transition it is, from dinner time to bedtime. Whenever there's a transition, if their brakes are weak, they can't transition, they can't adapt, they don't have the capacity. This heart rate variability scan lets us know how strong the brakes are, specifically the vagus nerve, because it's the vagus nerve that controls the heart rate. So through heart rate variability, we can understand how much power and flow the vagus nerve has. So these scans, we don't guess anymore. We know to the gnat's fanny exactly what's going on with the child's nervous system. So we scan the nervous system. That gives us, lets us look under the hood and say, hey, how's this brain working? How is this nervous system working? How stressed is the autonomic nervous system? How out of balance is the motor system? How much capacity does this child have? And when we see this and start adjusting specifically to their neurospinal issues, and we start balancing it out, getting the foot off the gas pedal, reconnecting the nervous system and calming it down, that's where the miracles happen. And children, as I said before, some of the other success stories, they get better at reading, they get better at math, they get calmer, they're able to sit still for a while. Their behaviors improve dramatically, all by tuning the nervous system. So this is how we do it. There's a 3-step clinical process here at Vital Wellness Center. One, we listen, and I'll move this over here. Oop, sorry. Oh, geez. Let's go back. Here it is. 3-step process. We listen and dive deep into your case history. So our kiddos, we go into pregnancy, we go into labor and delivery. We ask about any early childhood experiences. We're really like crime scene investigating, seeing where some of these red flags were, and essentially what's been going on in the child's life, so that we know how to best help. Then we do our scans, and we see exactly where the nervous system dysregulated. The third step is we have mom and dad come in, and we let them know what it is that we're finding and the care plan that we take, or the care that's going to be needed in order to get the nervous system regulated again. And it's at this point, you know what? There's a word that I want to throw out there. It's called neuroplasticity. Big fancy word, but it essentially means that neurons that fire together wire together. And you can have a negative path of neuroplasticity, which essentially means that if the baby's been born and there was birth trauma, and we see some of these early warning signs, their nervous system has been wired for stress. It's locked in. So we've got to unwire it, like release the neurological stress, and then build new, better, essentially build new pathways, healing pathways instead of stressful pathways. So that's what happens on the third step. We go over the findings, and we build up a care plan that's going to help pull these kids out of the storm. And here's another kiddo here, Maverick. His mom gave us a great testimonial here, and sharing her experience at VWC at the Vital Wellness Center. And she says, since beginning treatment, his son has shown significant positive changes, engagement in conversations. Maverick is level 2 autism. He's been Been amazed to see his vocabulary expanding. And what's more, he's even started to assert himself more, including engaging in playful arguments with his sister, which is a sign of growing social interactions and self-confidence. So again, the best way to get to the brain is through the spine. That, those are my slides.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dave.
You're welcome. I tried to make this short and sweet while at the same time delivering some like science and how this whole process works. But in the end, what we really want are results. Like, what do moms see? How do the lives change? Can you imagine having a more peaceful home, less behavioral battles with all the different transitions, better regulation at school? I mean, it's their life, right? And it's really making a huge impact, a positive impact on not only the child's life, but the entire family everything starts, calming down.
Very much so. I definitely agree. I wonder if any of our attendees have any questions. I don't think I see any on our Q&A list. You can unmute yourselves. You're welcome to speak freely. Well, if they don't, I know I do.
Fair enough.
Um, and please interrupt me if you guys come up with any questions as I'm asking anything. Um, for me, my background, other than kind of managing events, is in doula work. And so my background is in birth coaching, and it just like screamed to me when you first started talking about um, some of those prenatal things in pregnancy, um, handling stress, and how it can really affect the child long term, potentially. Um, so I guess my question is there a way for the mom to help kind of regulate her own immune system and hopefully have many things are out of our control. If
Right.
job loss, a death, whatever, those are all very much out of our control. But is there a way to mitigate some of those things so maybe we don't pass that stress pathway on to our children?
Yeah, so that's the whole beginning of that storm. The storm starts usually once we get into can I say this? Once we start getting into the medical system.
Mhm.
Because the more medicalized a pregnancy and birth is, the more stressors that come up. From what I found is that our this isn't feelings or emotions. This is just kind of the data that we've collected is that um, the more stressful, the more interventions and yes, the more interventions a pregnant mom has during her pregnancy, the more difficult the labor can be. So if we've got so how do we avoid that? How do we avoid the storm altogether? The first thing is finding the right birth and pregnancy team. So we always highly recommend a midwife, a professional midwife that can give moms and the key to this is empowering moms. There it is. We've got to empower moms and educate them as to what a pregnancy is like, all the different little stages, what labor is, what their bodies are designed to do, and how to get the most out of their bodies, because it comes back to the nervous system with moms as well. So the more regulated a mom's nervous system is, the less medical intervention she's going to need. The smoother and more effective and efficient her labor is going to be. A mom's nervous system who's stuck in fight or flight is going to have a longer labor and delivery. One of my mentors says that you can't drop the baby, you can't drop a baby when you're running from a tiger. And it's not like you're holding on to a baby. It means the baby that's inside the womb will not drop and proceed and you won't, well, the birth process will slow down essentially. The baby will not drop and proceed if you're stuck in fight or flight because there's too much tension there. And we see that a lot. I mean, heck, 33% of our births are C-section these days, which is just an abomination, really. There's so many C-sections, and so many of them are planned, and some of them are emergency, and some of them, yes, there are definite times and places, and a lot of the emergency C-sections are caused by the stress, the fight or flight response, and the medical interventions that also add more chemical stress, emotional stress, and physical stress to the mom's neurospinal system, which is what's regulating and controlling the whole birth process. So one of my favorite things to do is do what's called the Birth and Beyond workshop, which actually teaches moms essentially how to avoid the perfect storm in the first place. And it's empowering moms. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I've found in our medical system is that it disempowers the individual, where you have to give up your power to the perceived authority, right? And what I've found with midwifery and with doulas is that the education process is empowering. So that way we have the right mindset going into this whole birthing process because moms, you're made for this. You're designed for this. And if we can start connecting to that, again, that power, the most powerful force, healing force, a birthing force in the universe is within us. We just have to tap into it. So, yeah, moms, getting with moms before they give birth is so critically important because an empowered mom has a much healthier pregnancy and healthier delivery.
Definitely understand that. What about the pulling and the twisting that happens that you were showing during C-sections and during a lot of vaginal births as
Oh,
well?
all
I
of
know
them.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've even seen it at some home births. So in what way can we like I guess how does that really affect the baby? I've always been told that babies are so resilient and yeah, they come out, but then they go kind of right back to where they're supposed to. Their skull, yes, it malforms and kind of
Yeah.
overlaps on those plates, but then it goes right back. So everything's fine. So why isn't it just fine?
Uh, because the nervous system is so delicate. And if the spine does get it's not so much the shape or the alignment, it's also the movement. So when there's trauma up here, then you start to get the things get locked up and you can get a little more. I'm not going to call it scar tissue in a baby, but there's more. If the nervous system gets dysregulated as a baby and there's no correction, chiropractic correction, or any kind of correction to that, that firing is gonna keep on keeping on. So, your specific question again about like the twisting and the pulling, because it
Yeah.
happened. Like I saw it with my with Mason. He was born in the hospital and he comes out and the OB, takes his head, bends it this way, bends it that way, pulls it out, and I'm like, no, don't touch the head. Just don't touch the head. The baby knows how to turn. And so this is the beautiful thing is that when the baby's coming through the birth canal, its head turns all on its own to allow the shoulders to come through. Like the baby, the birth canal, the mom's birth canal does it all on its own. So the more, again, neurologically regulated the mom's nervous system is, and the less interventions that are going on, the more these things can just happen naturally. But again, there are emergencies that come up. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. See what I did there?
Ah.
But yes, there are times when there's emergencies. And at the same time, the more interventions that are in play, the more emergent situations come about. It's almost like it's being, you're manifesting it in a way because of all of the stress and interventions. The chemical stressors. The other thing is the physical stress. Being on your back is like the most physically ineffective way to deliver a baby. So you're going against gravity. It narrows the birth canal down. So we've got physical stressors. We got, boy, it looks like another slide that I had. Physical stressors, chemical stressors, emotional stressors. The same thing that cause subluxations in these babies are the same things that slow down and can dysregulate a labor. So the more we can teach a mom about keeping her nervous system regulated, and then and then team up with providers that can help educate her as well and be the birthing team, the more that we'll be avoiding these neurological developmental perfect storm disorders. The key is getting to the moms before they're even pregnant.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Here's another interesting point with that. The kiddos that we see, so we're seeing, they're kids to me because I'm like 120 these days. I say jokes and references in my office all the time, and I'm like, these moms have no idea what I'm talking about. Never mind, I'm old. But so the young moms that are coming in that are having issues with fertility, PCOS, PMS, all of these hormone imbalances in their 20s and 30s. When I do their histories, they have this, they're the perfect storm kids they're perfect storm kiddos. They had the anxiety, they had, the allergies, they had a whole, not all of them, but there is quite a few of this, they're perfect storm kids, and these perfect storm kids turn into the moms that have anxiety and hormone imbalances and infertility issues. And it's the same exact pathway.
Actually, I think my next question has to do with the slide that's up right now, which is wonderful. So I get that, we have the neuro-focused chiropractic care,
Mhm.
and how it regulates the nervous system. I think you did a really great job with the image of the gas pedal and the brake pedal. As we move up, and you're saying, oh, that functional medicine is great, and we're working on the gut microbiome. Right now, I'm just looking at that neuro, gut,
Mhm.
immune, endocrine level there. At what point do you suggest adding those things
Mm.
in if neuro
Yeah.
care is our focus?
Yes.
Um, when do we take that next step? When do we know, okay, we have hit the point where we can
Yes.
move
Sometimes
and
it's a
add
month,
something?
sometimes it's 2 months, sometimes it's 3 months. Um, I think I started to bring up a term called neuroplasticity. Did I say that
Hmm.
before? But then I probably went off on another tangent. I don't know.
No, you're
Neurons that fire
no.
together wire together. So during the first month, as we're unwinding old patterns and building new patterns, you want to add these things on good neurological pathways. So yeah, like I said, sometimes it's 1 month, sometimes it's a few months before we get enough regulation of the nervous system before it's ready for more. A lot of times to get proper nerve system regulation and to get that base secure, if you will, we have to pull back on some things. It's almost
Mhm.
what I call addition by subtraction. Sometimes we have to let's eliminate some or maybe even most of the supplements for a time being. Like put a pause on it because there can be too much of a good thing. If the nervous system, here it is. If the nervous system is confused, we can't add more to it to get less confusion. We need less. That's addition by subtraction. Pull back on some things for a while, balance out the foundation, the autonomics, then bring them back.
I have an attendee asking a question. Your clinic is far for this
Yeah,
person. Do
yeah,
you have any referrals for
I
like a
do.
Naperville or Downers Grove area?
Actually, that's not too far, but at Downers Grove, there is a wonderful doc by the name of Dr. Jim Clausen. He has a office called the Health Doctors. Here, you know what? Let's scratch that. Not scratch Jim. I love Jim, but you'll find him on this website. And this website is also going to give you all of this kind of information. It's an amazing resource for uh, for all of this. Everything from birth and beyond, having a healthy pregnancy, labor and delivery, to kicking the sick. Well, this is a term that we use, kick the sick, kids that have a lot of immune system imbalances, and perfect storm kiddos, kids that have a lot of neurodevelopmental issues. That website is PX Docs, DOCS, pxdocs.com. And that is an amazing resource for all sorts of conditions that you might want to look into. And on that website, it'll say find a PX doc. And then you'll type in your address or zip code, push go, and it'll have the closest PX doc that does this same kind of scanning and clinical evaluation and care planning that I do.
Wonderful. Um, I guess maybe my last question, since we're past 8 o'clock already. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I know you have
gosh.
been a wealth of information. Um, with this in mind, and kind of what you were talking about with moving forward with the care plan, we've subtracted in order to add. Do you use scanning as a way to verify to move forward with the care plan, or do you more use discussion, a little bit of both? What is kind of the
So the
gold
scans,
standard?
so what we do, we scan essentially every 12 visits, so we know how their nervous system is changing. And then based on their scans, that's going to let us know when we can add in other things, if we need to add, if we can add in a therapy, or if we add in a detox or whatever. So a lot of it, yes, it's based on scans, and we scan depending on the frequency. Gosh, there's some kiddos that come in that are what we call intensives, and they're getting adjusted a few times a day. They're getting tuned. Now, I want to also clarify what an adjustment is at a PX doc office. Because everybody who thinks a chiropractic adjustment, they're thinking cracking necks and cracking backs. And that's not exactly what we do. So a lot of our adjustments are light touch, where we're using just touch on the right spot, on the right neurological spot to calm things down. Now, sometimes some areas might need woken up, like that T12 area that is very much weak and slouching in some kids. So in those areas, we need to give it a little oomph. And some of us also have instruments, clicking or percussive type instruments that we use. I like to call it three different levels, at least in my office. There's the whisper approach, which is the light touch to calm things down. There's the talking approach with the instrument to, if that's needed. And then there's a little bit of I won't call it yelling, a stern talking to wake up some areas to say, you got to get back online. So those are the things that you'll find with a PX doc that's going to understand what kind of adjustment to use when. I don't know if
That
I
makes
answered your question.
sense.
Did I go off topic?
Um,
Your question was, do I use the scans? How do we know when to like bring other things in, and how we know what kind of how the care plan is going to proceed?
yes.
The original care plan is based on history and what the initial scan findings are. And then as we get into and work through the care plan, we're also doing re-exams. So we see how the nervous system is changing so that we can adapt our techniques and change things up wherever the primary subluxation may be, because one primary might go away and then we address another one.
That makes sense. Well, I won't
All
keep
right.
you any more tonight.
Well,
I'm
very
sure
good.
we
Thank
could
you.
talk for hours and hours, but
Yeah,
I
we
really
both got
appreciate your
families, right?
time. Yeah, yeah, we do.
Thank you so much for having me on. I hope that this was something that the moms can really learn a lot from. And if they have how to contact and connect with me is vitalwellnesscenter.net. That is our website. Um, the pxdocs.com is another place where you can find me there too. And gosh, my email is Dr. Dave at vitalwellnesscenter.net. You can contact me there. You can give me a smoke signal. I usually, respond to that. The bat signal, whatever it takes. Yeah, if anybody has any questions out there or you want more information or just need somebody to talk to say, gosh, how can I need help. Just yeah, reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Dave.
You're
I hope you
welcome.
have a great evening, and I hope our attendees have a great evening as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.